We are live. It says you are live. That means we are live. All right. I am going to click on Instagram over here. Make sure that kicks in. There we go. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching this video, whether you are watching it live, whether you are watching it recorded, whatever time of day that you are consuming this information. We appreciate you bringing us into your day, and we are confident that something that gets said is going to impact you in some way. And I always love the thought of that. I am having a pretty gorgeous day right here. It's not too hot, not too cool. I'll let you speak about weather in a minute after you introduce yourself, but I'm enjoying the kind of climate that's taking place right now. It's been escalating between cool and hot here in New York. And so it's nice to have a nice, beautiful breeze blowing outside the window. I am here with Jennifer, and Jennifer and I met in a community that we were both in and have been able to actually have conversations in person. But lately, life being what it is, we have not had a chance to catch up. So a lot of the things that we're going to be chatting about, I'm really curious to ask, and I resisted the urge to message because I knew we had this coming up, and I'm like, I'm going to wait and just ask the questions when we're live. So that said, Jennifer, why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, and then we'll chat.
Well, hi, Deb. It's so good to see you again. I wish I could give you a great big hug in person, but this is the next best thing. So I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. I am Dr. Jennifer Knowles. I am an educator, speaker, writer, and consultant. And I have my one-liner here. I help amplify the talents of leaders, teams, and individuals as we unleash human potential for exponential growth.
Ooh.
That was a mouthful.
There's one-liners, right? There's one-liners. I don't know if you're done, so I don't want to cut you off, but we'll talk about that. All right.
And I'm in Denver, and like the weather went from 2 weeks ago to like snow, a week ago to hail. It was literally this big, like giant. Anyone who left their cars on the road, like totaled their car, got their cars totaled. And now it's 97 degrees. So a 2-week time frame, you never know what you're going to get in Colorado, but yeah, I'm happy it's sunny.
Yeah, I mean, New York can be like that. This time of year, we're pretty safe from any snow type stuff, but we get hail, though. We have not here ever gotten the hail like that big. Like we've gotten hail that could do damage. But speaking of hail, and the impact of hail, I don't know how I'm connecting this to the one-liner. In my head, I was like, there's got to be a way, but I'm like, I'm just going to admit I cannot make the segue smoothly, so I'm just going to say we're shifting gears here to talk about the one-liner. Because I saw you were reading it, which is fine. I feel like even when you know inherently what you do and could very easily explain to people what you do, that one-liner is really tricky. And lately, I was somewhere where somebody was asking me to say it in one line, and I was like, and I've been doing some marketing stuff because I've got some things coming up and trying to kind of fine-tune the language, less about because I want to sell and more about I just want to be really clear about what I'm about and what I offer so that connect with the right people. And it's really hard. That one-liner thing is really hard. Like, how do you very simply say what you do? So I saw you kind of taking it in, and you could tell that you were like, you're passionate about it, but you're still trying to get it. Maybe let's just like off the gate here.
All right, you got it. So okay. So we're all busy women. We're all busy, moms. We're juggling so much in our lives. And right. And so how do you say everything that you do in like one sentence? I mean, I'm sure you as well are juggling probably 10 hats. We're in different 10 hats in one single day. Right before this, we had a soda party, and my kids are so happy that they're finally after school. And we had a blind taste test of all the Sprites and all the Cokes and all the cherry Cokes and all the Mountain Dews. And I got like almost everyone wrong. And here's the most interesting thing. I thought I was a Coke person. I drink Coke and Diet Coke and cherry Diet Coke every single day. And I tasted them and they were gross. And it turns out with the blind taste test, I was a Pepsi person. So there you go. We're always growing and changing, including your preferences on soda.
Yeah. Well, we're creatures of habit, right? So it's like in the past, you just thought that was your preference because it's what you always had, but absolutely. So you're also probably jacked up a little bit on sugar and caffeine.
Yeah, sugar and caffeine, and I'm ready to go.
But yeah, that one-liner. And I think the other part of it is clarity because you want to make sure that there's that whole why, right? Like the why do you do
Mhm.
what you do?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so when you're trying to create that one liner, you're trying to think about how do you encompass why you do it, not just what you do,
Yeah,
but why you do it. And so
yeah,
I feel like the words that you choose, the adjectives are the ones that are supposed to drive the
yeah,
why you do it.
yeah.
And that can be tricky because people can interpret language in so many different ways. How did you arrive at your one liners? That's kind of, I'm curious for you. How did you get there?
Well, I have to say it's still a work in progress, but when I speak from the heart, truly the authentic self, my entire career, whether it's been working in corporate or teaching or whatever it is, I've always been developing people. I believe that every single person has so much potential and so much light in them. And so many of us go through our entire lives and we never truly access that place that truly lights us up. And so what gets me excited, whether, I'm training in a corporation or I'm teaching my graduate students, it's getting to that why. What do you care about and where do you want to have impact in this world? How can you truly make a positive difference? And sometimes it's unexpected places. I'm talking about classrooms, whether it's at work or in school. But, I'll talk about a few years ago, my kids' lemonade stand got shut down by police. And they were just trying to go out and have a lemonade stand and raise some money so they could, well, my one kid wanted shoes, but ultimately the others, they wanted to raise money so they could adopt a child on the other side of the world so they could
Oh,
support him and have this friendship with this person who's less fortunate. And it got shut down. And I just finished my PhD, which was in organizational learning, performance, and change. Another humongous mouthful. And I'm like, okay, well, this sucks. My kids' lemonade stand got shut down, and they said it was because someone complained about us and a lack of permits. Well, it turns out in Denver, that you needed three at the time. You needed 3 permits for a kid to have a lemonade stand, and we are like, "What? That is so ridiculous. That's crazy." And so, we just, we shut it down, and we're sitting there on the floor back at our house, and everyone's all sad and dejected and feeling like, "Why is this happening? Why is this happening to us?" And I said, let's not sure what we're going to do, but let's do something about it. And so I actually ended up I went to bed feeling kind of bummed about everything that was going on. And do you ever wake up in the middle of the night where you just have like this bright light or like this, calling or just something, an action that you just have to take? Well, I had one of those. And so I called the media. I just went on, I didn't call the media. There was like on my phone, you could submit a story and talk about what happened, and would you like your local news station to investigate? So I told them what happened, and then I went back to bed. So then at like, I don't know, 6 in the morning, I get a phone call from the local media station that I had just submitted a form to like 3 hours ago, and they were like, "We're going to be at your doorstep in an hour, be ready." Because they wanted to tell our story. And sure enough, it turns out lemonade stands were not just legal in the city of Denver, but they were for kids, that they were illegal technically in like multiple states across the country. And we ended up with my kids and the support of the community and Country Time Lemonade and lawmakers and all this media, all this stuff. We ended up getting laws changed for kids' businesses, not only in the city of Denver, but for the state of Colorado for kids' entrepreneurship, and also in 17 states across the country. And I say all that because you just never know where life's going to take you. But getting back to what we were talking about, like the core that lights you up, if we can create impact, find impact, create good in this world, find the light to help others, to support others, that's what I'm all about.
yeah, that pivot point, right? It's the seeing, and that's what you're talking about, creating change in people, right? And that's what
Mhm.
your
Yeah,
degree was in, and that's the and
absolutely.
really at the core as a parent, as an
Mhm.
educator,
Yeah.
right? We're trying not to get people. I wanna say we're trying to guide people, right? Because
Yep.
we're not lifting and
Mhm.
carrying them. We're helping people to see the
Mhm.
direction to get from point A to point B. Whether
Yeah.
that's learning new material, so you're going from not fully understanding the material to understanding the material more,
Mhm.
whether it's I'm at this place in my life and I wanna move to this place in my life. But
Yeah.
parenting, education, those things are really all about the, helping somebody else navigate change. And interestingly,
Mhm.
as you know, right, that's become my thing, and
Yeah.
I was a teacher. I was a teacher for 13 years. I taught high school English. I loved it. I loved it. I loved working with youth. I also had a youth program at the time. And when you know, I want to say, I don't remember exactly the point in time, but when I was going into college and in college, I thought I really wanted to be a middle school teacher. Like that was my target age range. I thought I really wanted to be a middle school teacher. And I had applied to some middle school jobs, but the position came up for this high school position and it was in the district that I had gone to. And I was really excited. And I thought like, well, I'll do this. And then maybe down the road, I can move into a middle school position. And I ended up loving it. And the reason I wanted to do middle school was because I thought like, oh, I'm going to get them a little earlier in their life and in their, their
Yeah.
later education, because elementary school is pretty kind of like your formative years, and, be able to kind of help them make some decisions and stuff like that. But then I was teaching high schoolers and I realized that in some ways, high schoolers were very much like middle schoolers in the sense of still having uncertainty and still liking things like stickers, like putting stickers on their papers was like huge. Words of affirmation and recognition and acknowledgement. And yet, because there were so many standardized tests, particularly in New York, very standardized test driven curriculum, changing a little bit, but still there. And I'm not opposed to standardized tests by any means, but sometimes it can become overwhelming. And as a result of that, you lost a little bit of the taking advantage of opportunities to just let kids be kids, and they still wanted to be kids in 11th grade. And so I would like I'd bring costumes and things in, and they would dress up and they would do all, just really it was a lot of fun. And so fast forward, life circumstances happened and I got into business consulting, which was a interesting hop. Be that as it may, I ended up in that and I'm like, okay, what are the skill sets? What are the things that I'm going to use that I know that I already have? Because there's obviously things I'm going to have to learn that are going to work. And it was teaching, right? And communication and helping people to navigate change. And across industries, that's something that we all have in common. Across our lives, we're all changing and growing every single day. And so it has to do with mindset, it has to do with planning, and it has to do with action. And those three components. And I think those are things that I try to apply to my life. I try to apply to other people's life. So for you, because you're educator and you just finished, or not just finished, but you took this program, right? That's so
Yeah.
much of what you do.
Yeah.
What is it that made you pick that specific focus and say, like, this is what I want to do? Is it similar in terms of like that whole education and teaching part? What was the piece that you think that intrigued you about change and
Well,
transformation?
I have to say I've always been a teacher. Growing up, my family was always like, "Oh, you should be a school teacher." I'm like, "That sounds great, but that's not for me." And so fast forward a number of years, go to college, also an English major. Um, but writing, English major doesn't always pay the bills. So I went into business. And so my first job was out in California at a retail headquarters. And very quickly, it was like all numbers and spreadsheets. I'm like, oh gosh, this is not for me. So I got into teaching. And so I got into corporate training because basically I became, the helping people, nurturing, finding the gifts in others, helping them discover them for themselves. You could do that in corporate. For adults need that too. Whether, I'm teaching adults or I'm teaching my small children who are, just figuring out how to read and the basics of life, it's all the same. And to see adults as well as, my own children like light up when they have that aha moment, they have that discovery. It's exciting. I feel like the best thing about life is to continue to grow and develop. And I feel like if we become stagnant, then life becomes boring. I'm ready. I'm finishing up a book that's going to be out in a few weeks, and it's called More Time by Friday, and it's written for busy women like us who have big goals, big aspirations. And this particular book, it's going to be a series, but this particular book is about time and how we don't have enough time. I mean, how many times do you find yourself saying, "Oh, I'll do that when," or, "That sounds super fun, but I don't have time right now." And so it's really about prioritizing what makes you happy, like what fills you up, finding your why, finding your purpose, and really rebalancing your life and rebalancing your schedule so you can really create those opportunities to shine and to flourish. And so to answer your question, yes, it's always been teaching, whether it's, my own kids or corporations. And I loved what I did so much that I went back to school and got a PhD in it, because I'm like, if I love what I'm doing so much in this space, I want to be the best at it. And so for me, learning how to do research and to, take it kind of to the knowledge level of growth and development and change. I have a freaking PhD, and change is in my PhD, how we can grow and transform and embrace change as opposed to, be scared of it. I think, when there's no change, we're stagnant. And there's a chapter in my book, and it's about Richard Scarry's Busy Town. And I don't know if you remember as you were a child, if you read Richard Scarry's books, or if you've read them to your own kids. Like, we get in our cars and we go and we do, and then we go home, and then we, have our dinner and go to bed. And then the next day do the very same thing again. And then, fast forward, you're at the end of your life, and suddenly you haven't done those things that you want to do in your life, because you haven't created and fostered the space for yourself to really grow and develop and really follow your passion. So.
Wow. So I'm trying to decide where to go. There's a lot there. So yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you filling in a lot of the details, because I think the details are really important to what made you choose the parts of it that you chose to focus on, and why you went like the time thing. And one of the things I was thinking about when you were talking about the More Time by Friday, that's the name, right? More Time by Friday. I think when I'm working with, and whether it's working with individuals or companies, so this is one of those, there are some things that are very unique between change management in a company versus change management with a person, but is that you do have to make some choices, right? There's the effective path, there's the efficient path. Obviously, you want to try to marry the two of them. And sometimes you're trying to decide, am I going to lean more into what's going to be the most efficient? Am I going to lean more into what's going to be the most effective? And the interesting piece is that a lot of times people assume when they're making that decision that automatically what's out of the gate the most efficient, meaning I can make the quickest changes right going forward, right? So the immediate most efficient is going to be the overall most efficient. But many times it's the more effective that becomes the overall more efficient, because it's more lasting, and you've covered things, and you haven't left out some of the pieces that when you get to Friday, you're like, oh shoot, I still have to do all these other things that I didn't do. And when we're busy and we have to make those changes on the spot, whether we're leading an organization, or we're somebody who's being led in an organization, or we're an individual making a life transition, it's hard. You're like, okay, what do I do right now? I've got all these different potential options in front of me, and I need it. And there's a really intentional way that you have to stop and think to yourself, I'm going to be mindful about this decision. Even when it feels like I've got to make the decision right away, you've got to take that moment to kind of consider, like, what are the options here and the long-term results. And I think from some of the past conversations that we've had, I know that's something that you were putting into the consideration, right? That it's about getting things accomplished, but it's about getting things accomplished in a way that's going to stick and last and be sustainable. So was that something that you had struggled with, and that was why you decided to write a book about it? Like, you realized, wow, I'm busy, and these were the techniques that worked? Or
yes, because I, like I was mentioning before, we as women wear so many hats every single day, from getting up and getting the kids out the school, to rushing home, to doing work, to doing the laundry, to work, and then go pick up the kids and activities, and then bed, and then suddenly, woo, I'm tired. Like, I fell asleep with the lights on, with still in my clothes, like half the time on the couch, exhausted. And I'm thinking, a year goes by and I still haven't done the things I want to do. I still haven't pursued my passions. And so really having to, when you're in a life that we're all busy, we're all have so many demands on us, to really be intentional about your time, to make time for you, make time for yourself, really figure out what lights you up and prioritize that time. Whether that would be doing a time audit to see where you spend your time, or, creating in your phone, in the calendar, the time block. This is your time for writing, or this is your time for taking piano lessons, or taking tennis lessons, or whatever that is that makes you happy. And I started. So yes, I wrote this book because I was struggling with it big time, and I'm like, okay, well, I know how to read. I know how to research. I'm going to research, and I'm going to see what everyone has said about this. I'm going to read the all the guru books. I'm going to look at the research. And I actually did my own survey. I did my own research to validate what I was reading and finding. That it's something that we all struggle with, but we can accomplish it, and if we really focus on our most important tasks, focus out in days or by weeks or by even years, we can accomplish so much more and create that time for us in our really busy chaotic lives.
Yeah, and it's hard when you're I think particularly when you're a parent, though obviously I don't think you have to be a parent to have that struggle, but sometimes you're almost like embarrassed to admit that you're having trouble managing your time because it feels like to say that I'm not doing my best. Oh, I'm having I'm not able to do these particular things or carry these tasks out. And I think like we learn a lot of those skills when we're in elementary school. I mean, I don't think they use them anymore, but I used to have a little memo pad, right? Like you carried the memo
Mhm.
pad and you wrote your homework assignments down in it. And then you get home from school and you'd look and you'd see like how much homework do I have, right? Obviously with parental guidance, making the decision like, do I have time to go out inside and play? Now, one would hope that in elementary school, there's at least some time left for play. I mean, I think they're even really starting to now try to prioritize less homework, more playtime. But again, you had to make some decisions about that. And so by the time that you're an adult, you're a professional, you're a parent, you're, all these different things, you feel like, well, I should have already figured out how to know how much time I need to get things done. But
Mhm.
there's all these unpredictable things that pop up. And
Yeah, for
so
sure.
we start to kind of internally berate ourselves for not having been able to prioritize or not having been able to discern or determine how much time it was going to take us to get stuff. And then you spend, who knows, X amount of time beating yourself up that then is further not getting the task done. And so it's hard to kind of stop and say to somebody like, "Can you just help me figure out like what I need to do to be able to get through my day, to get out of busy town?" Right?
Yeah,
Like the
absolutely.
characters in that book, right? Like they're in a
Yeah,
routine, they're in a rhythm, like
yeah.
there's not a lot of pausing to say like something is wrong here. And so I think the gift of your book is that people can take that, they can consume that, they can use those strategies. Certainly it'd be awesome if they also reached out to you and said like, "Hey, read your book and would love some tips." Right? And there are lots of people out there, consultants and coaches and things, but I think it's the acknowledgement that I want more time and something that
Mhm.
I'm doing is not working. It's not just these
Mhm.
external factors.
Mhm.
There's gotta be a way that I can make some changes that are gonna do that. So, I think that it's a beautiful thing that that's the first one out of the gate. I know that there's gonna be a series, but I think it's a perfect thing out of the gate because before you even start addressing some of these other types of things that you wanna do, you've gotta find the way to add and subtract things from your day to make it effective and efficient.
Absolutely. I
Um
think we as women are we're raised to say yes and to be people pleasers. I looked at my time, how I spent it last year, and I was room moms for 2 grades at 2 schools and volunteering for every single aspect of my kids' everything, let alone helping in my family and doing yes, 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 and yes. I didn't say no because I think we as women can struggle with, wanting to be that person and support and care and nurture and say yes and not disappoint anyone. And I think for me personally, learning how to say no is can be one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves to give time to ourselves. What's the saying? The best gift of I'm gonna fully funnel up, but
it's
it's all
time, the
about
gift of time.
yeah, it's to say to you say no to create more yeses. You say no to create more
Mm.
yeses in your life. You have to get rid of stuff to create space for all of the new things, the good things, the growth, the transformation to come to us and be able to open and go down those paths and explore where that takes us.
Yeah, I there's a teacher that when I went to school that used to help me a lot with that. That when in high school it was an English teacher actually with um that idea of the no to yes, right? Like
Mhm.
where do you say no? And it's funny because it was really it was really in talking about commas. because I don't know if you had this, but like I would have like one teacher who really liked commas, then I'd have like another teacher who didn't like commas, because there are those commas that like
Yeah,
you know, it's kind of opinion
yeah.
whether you include it or not. And I remember her kind of talking about, you know, making those decisions, and like when you think about the comma being the pause, right? And the
Mhm,
comma, and when do you
mhm,
pause and when do you not pause, and when is it important to reroute and make a new direction. And I mean, I don't know that I think I'm sure I won't ever master that skill, but I think what we can do is be very aware of that potential. That
mhm,
potential both in things that happen to us that we didn't choose, right? There's the things that are
mhm,
no's that we had no, you know, what a road's closed, you're not going down
mhm,
that road. Like you've got no
mhm,
control over that. Versus
mhm,
you come and there's two different roads and you've got to make the choice. And
mhm,
so when we recognize the no's as potential, or not even as potential, as yeses to something else, I'm not going down this
mhm.
road, I am going down this road.
Yep.
It also helps us to live a lot more freely into the potential for opportunities where we wouldn't expect them. So we live a little more curiously, right? As
Mhm,
opposed to
mhm.
spending 15 minutes drive. I'm gonna go hard with this analogy now. Like, forget it. It's like we're gonna be so far down this road that it's gonna be like, but we're driving down now the road that we've been rerouted, whether it's by choice or whether it's by the road closed. And instead of spending time going like, should I have made this turn? Or, oh, this is so
Mhm,
annoying that I have to go that way.
mhm,
We're looking
mhm.
for like, what am I gonna see that I didn't expect to see today? And what are some
Absolutely.
new ways that I can plan and purpose my time? And it's, but it's a growing process. I mean, because I still find myself sometimes like, did I really just spend 15 minutes of my time being annoyed that, you know, whatever the circumstance
Yeah.
was?
Yep, yep.
So, that's why it's good to do this, right? You kinda keep each other
Yeah,
in check.
absolutely.
Accountability people who'll be like, "Yeah, you know what? You need to let that go now because you're
Yep.
wasting."
You know
Yeah.
what? There was a really good book, and I'm sure you've read it, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I just reread it a few months ago. And I gotta tell you, everything happens to us at the right times for us when we need it to move us forward in our life. And the takeaway when I read this book again was really just focusing on the power of now. What happened in the past. Like you said, if we spend our, 15, 20 minutes or even years ruminating about
Oh,
something that
sure.
happened to us in the past, how is that helping us now? How is that helping us move forward? But if we focus on now and focus on gratefulness of all the good that's happening to us in all aspects of our life, and even if something's not so great right now, that's going to build up our character so we can grow and expand for what's to come, which is going to be even better. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, and I like I didn't know if you were finished or not, so I didn't wanna cut you off. I do that sometimes because there's a delay and I don't realize the person's still going, so I didn't wanna if you had something more to say, I didn't wanna, like,
No,
wow,
good.
okay. I liked the word focus too, because focus indicates that it's not the only thing, because what is important is in that moment of
Mhm,
regret or doubt, we are gonna have emotions, and we're not gonna get rid of
mhm,
those emotions, and we shouldn't get rid of
mhm,
those emotions, but we should learn from and with those emotions into
mhm,
forward. So there is I feel frustrated that the road was closed because I'm not gonna get to where I was going on time. You don't need to like, there's nothing wrong with feeling frustrated about that. It doesn't mean you're inherently unable to feel gratitude or that you're selfish, right? Those are all very normal human emotions. But
mhm.
what we try to do is focus, and focus is an intentional thing, right?
Yep.
It's like when I don't know why this works. I feel like I learned in the past, but when you're trying to concentrate, sometimes you close your eyes. I think it has to do with sensory stuff, right? Like even if I'm in a dark room and I can't see the lights, I'll close my eyes to help me find my way. It's almost like by closing your eyes, I think you must tell your brain, I need everything
Mhm,
else in full check because I have no vision. No vision at this moment.
mhm,
So it's very intentional, the focus. And that's the same thing with when you're in that moment and you're feeling that emotion that's very real, that's very valid. We're not disregarding it. We're not going to be like, oh, I just need to forget about this. We can take that emotion, we can take the concern we have about the past, but we can still focus on what we need to do to move forward. And it's that intention. And so I think wanting to kind of remind people too, because sometimes when I'll be saying some of this stuff, I'll feel like I don't want somebody out there, and I've even had people who were in the conversation, I realize they do think that, you've got to stop doing that. Like your gut emotions are always going to exist. That's okay. right?
Absolutely. And I
Always
think
gonna be intentional.
it's even more than okay. It's your intuition. Like follow your gut. Follow what your body and your soul and your mind is telling you and go with it. And sometimes life will take you in unexpected places that you never imagined, like the lemonade stand. I mean, I had just gotten a
Right.
PhD and I was like, well, wow, okay, I can take these change principles I just, wrote a book on and or dissertation on and apply it in our life. And just being open to opportunities, um, I think is one of the greatest gifts in life, and not letting them and not being so closed off and letting them pass us by, to really just go with our gut and go with our intuition as we focus to take those action steps to move us forward.
Yeah, and you ended up going viral with the lemonade stand thing. I mean, it wasn't even just like in addition to creating those changes, I'm sure that hadn't been your this is how what I'm gonna be known for, but it did make you more it had you become more visible, and maybe it
Mhm,
was for that specific component, but once you open
mhm.
up an audience and you have that connection and that visibility, you're able to use that for other things, and
Absolutely.
so it is also about seeing how you can draw connections in ways and not look at things as segmented and siloed and like, well, this has got nothing to do with what I'm doing. Like you just said, you were operating using change principles. How can I take the situation that exists and turn it into something else? And what a cool model for your children. Number one, the fact that it wasn't like, well, this didn't work out the way we wanted, so we're gonna just feel sad about it, or we're gonna accept it and move on. But like, let's look into if there are other options. And sometimes there aren't. Sometimes we encounter situations where there's nothing that we can do to affect the result we want or think we need, but going down that path opens our eyes to additional things. And I think that's that piece, that curiosity, right? Like you reached out to the media and then you started doing research and you started like it was just let me see what I can learn. Because at the very least,
Absolutely.
you would have learned a whole bunch of information.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the key, is just being open to growth in unexpected areas, unexpected opportunities, and embracing those as ways to help us grow and thrive and really transform to be the best version of ourselves. So when we get to the end of our lives, we're sitting on that rocking chair, we're looking back at the end of our lives, we can pat ourselves on the back and say, yes, I did that. I feel good. I'm proud of the life I lived.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do the rocking chair test. That's something that I do a lot of times too. Like, what will I, in this situation, what will I want to look back on and think that I chose? Um,
Mhm.
Obviously, that's not the only thing. You got to weigh some, because sometimes I'm like, well, I'd like to think that I just did this and threw caution to the wind, but at the same time, so obviously there's other factors that come into it. Now you mentioned the book that's soon to be released is part of a series. Do you know what the whole like what all the other ones are going to be, or is it you just know it's going to be part of a series?
Yeah, so it's going to be a 21-day series, and so the idea is that we can build new habits, and new habits can be built from 18 days to well over 150 days or beyond. And so 21 days is really that short, kind of 3-week time frame, the shortest time frame that we can really truly instill a new habit. And so the idea of the 21-day habit series is that within 3 weeks, we can really create actionable changes in our lives to help us live more purposeful lives. So the first one, More Time by Friday, coming out in a couple weeks. The second one is going to be More Joy by Friday. There's going to be
Mm.
More Money by Friday. There's going to be all the things that we want in our life that maybe we are here and we like to be here, and how we can incorporate more of those good things in our life, to make our lives even more awesome than they are right now.
That's
So
super cool. I
be on
love
the
the more
lookout.
time by Friday. Like I love the by Friday. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And they're like, someone was like, well, why Friday? Why not Saturday? Why not Sunday? But I don't know. I don't know if you're like me, but by Monday come around and I'm not loving everything I'm doing in my day, I'm looking forward to Friday. I'm looking forward to the weekend. And hopefully I'll get to that point where every day feels like the weekend and every day feels like, the most amazing, abundant, full of joy. But it's a work in progress, and I'm definitely in progress as well. And I just want to share with others the journey that I'm on and provide hope and let people know that we're all in this together to support each other to really live our best lives.
Yay. Well, I probably should have saved that for your final thought because that was a powerful one. But I'm gonna first we will end with your final thought for everybody, as I always like to end with that. But before we do that, you want to tell everybody how you get in touch, how they get in touch with you. What is the best way for them to connect with you, follow you, etc.?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. Well, I have a website, jenniferknowles.com. You can come join me there. I'm going to be having some book freebies on that website as well. I'm actually pretty active on Instagram, and I'm known as Lemonade Stand Mama, way back from the lemonade stand days. And I'm also active on LinkedIn as well, just under Jennifer Knowles, PhD. So I would love to connect with you.
Yeah. And if anybody would like to connect with Jennifer and is in my network, please feel free to reach out to me. Sometimes people would like a tee up or an introduction. So I would be more than happy to do that. If you don't want to just reach out to her directly, obviously feel free to reach out to her directly. But if you'd like me to do the introduction, we can certainly do that. And before we do your final thought, I really appreciate you talking. I'm sure we could talk for 2 hours or more about so many different things: education, parenting, change. But I really enjoyed this conversation and the connections that we made. And I'm sure that people were listening to this and nodding their head, because I think everybody can relate to that idea of like, I wish I had more time, and what can you do to make that happen? So I really appreciate that. And of course, appreciate everybody who has joined us, whether live or is watching this recorded, to let us be a part of their day. So before we say goodbye here to everybody, what is a final thought that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I'm going to leave you with one of my very favorite quotes, and I'm sure you've heard it before, but it's a good one. Be the change you wish to see in the world, by Gandhi.
I love it. Absolutely. And you're doing that. And hopefully we're going to do that one life at a time, right? And everybody can go out there and spread ripples of positivity. So again, thank you very much. Thank you to everybody else. We appreciate you. Have a wonderful day.